Hey makers, we're about to go live on LinkedIn. Are you ready? Let's come together to shatter convention, navigate life and work, find leaders worth following, make a statement.
Equality is sameness. Equity is fairness.
This roundtable is really important to amplify the voices of young women in our generation and think about how we can connect and support each other as we make change.
So tune in from wherever you are. It's time for Makers Live on LinkedIn.
Welcome into another edition of Makers LinkedIn Live. I will be your host today, Caroline Fenton, and I am honored to be part of this panel, to be part of a space where women can come to connect and support other women and inspire the next generation of young women and girls. And that's exactly what we are here to do today, to talk about the future makers in sports. If you're new to Makers, first of all, welcome. Makers is powered by Yahoo, and it's a gender equity brand rooted in storytelling that creates engaging and accessible spaces to fuel transformation. And today, we will be exploring how being an athlete shapes identity and leadership and paves the way for career paths beyond sport and beyond the game. So I'm very excited to introduce who will be joining me today. First and foremost, Adriene Bueno, the co-founder and chief growth officer of a career platform called Runna. Adriene, before I introduce the rest of our panelists, just wanted to give you the floor, give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you so much, Caroline. So my name, again, Adriene Bueno. I'm the co-founder and chief growth officer of Runna, which is a career and networking platform for business professionals who work in sports, media, and entertainment. And we're using AI to help connect people to career opportunities, to each other, and really build meaningful relationships and opportunities across the industry. And I'm super excited to be here today.
So excited to have you. Welcome in, and thank you for being here. Next, we will introduce Kayla Jeter. She is a Runna coach and athlete mental health specialist. Kayla, thanks so much for joining us. Same thing, I'll give you the floor. Give a little introduction to the people.
Very excited to be here, Caroline. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Kayla Jeter. I am a Runna coach, which is a digital coaching platform where we coach runners from beginning or experienced runners. So if you ever thought about running, Runna is a great platform to check out. I'm also an athlete mental health specialist with OnRise as a peer-to-peer support. So we help youth to professional athletes journey through their career as athletes on and off the court.
As somebody who has thought a lot about running, but hasn't done a lot of running, we're going to have to connect. After this, you and I are going to have a conversation. And last but certainly not least, I am so excited to introduce Ice Young, a basketball analyst and CEO of Your World Enterprises, and maybe most importantly, my co-host on the Hoops 360 podcast on the Yahoo Sports Network. Ice, welcome in. It is always a pleasure to chat with you. Tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Hi, friend and new friends. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. I am in New Jersey, South Jersey, close to Philadelphia. So go Birds in case you don't know it. But I currently am the lead WNBA analyst on CBS. I work on television as a basketball commentator. I also work for Fox, CBS, NBC, and the CW calling men's and women's college basketball. And then on the side, I media train athletes and help them discover their brand, how to handle live interviews, and build their social media presence through my business, Your World Enterprises.
What can't this whole panel do? I mean, I'm so excited for this. And just anybody that's at home watching and listening on LinkedIn, feel free to send in some questions. We will leave some time for all of you for some community questions, for some discussion at the end. So feel free to send those in and we'll get to those after some questions that I have for you all. And one of my most empowering things, I think it is for me, watching, my daughters of friends or nieces, nephews, cousins, is watching them grow up and find themselves and find their confidence through sports. I think that's a huge thing for young women. So Kayla, I'll start with you. When you go back to your time as a young athlete, a kid who liked sports, watched sports, and played sports, was there a particular skill or lesson that stands out to you that you now carry into your professional life?
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more, Caroline. I think sports has shaped me as a woman in so many ways. So although I'm a Runna coach, I grew up playing volleyball. I played collegiately and professionally. And although it may sound cliche, the power of the team really is what builds a really strong community, especially when it comes to running. The work that I do now as a Runna coach, it feels like a lonely adventure sometimes when you're out there hitting the pavement or maybe the trails, going after a big goal, but it really is this collective effort that helps us get to that next goal. So being able to really foster open communication, trust, vulnerability is what's helped me become a more efficient, I think, and even successful coach, helping athletes do something they've never done before or even have fear. And that also translates over into the mental health space, knowing what it means to be a good teammate. How do you listen? So that community and communication point is really, really important for the work that I do.
Yeah, and fascinating to have your perspective as somebody that came from a team sport to now an individual and mental sport and being a runner. It doesn't matter if it's team or if it's individual, those same kind of principles still kind of hit home. And I guess I'll ask you a similar question. Being on a team doesn't stop whenever you stop playing sports, right? Being on a team extends into professional life when you have a team of broadcasters, when you have a team of mentees underneath you. So maybe what did you learn from your time growing up and playing basketball and being part of a team sport? How has that made you a better professional and teammate today?
Yeah, for sure. It's a very thoughtful question. And the first thing that came to mind was a lesson I learned twice in my career, once in college and once professionally overseas, which was to not cheat the game. If you're an athlete, no matter what sport you play, whether you run, you jump, you're in a team or individual, at some point, some coach or parent has told you to not cheat the game. That if you give it 10 out of 10 every time, 100% of your effort, it will yield results. It may not always yield exactly what you want, but it will yield results, right? I've never heard nothing coming from hard work. One of my favorite quotes that I kind of live by when I'm tired at the end of the day and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I want to do next. Like something is going to come from the hard work that we're putting in. And so I learned this lesson through injury where I felt like I was maybe cheating the game and not giving as much of my body to it as I needed to, and then suffered a major injury and had to come back. And then I learned this playing professional basketball where it was, I had so much time on my hands outside of basketball, but I really was cheating the game by not spending extra time in my craft that I was getting paid to do professionally in other countries. And so now in broadcasting, I think about that in terms of having integrity when reporting, right? Not cheating the players that I'm covering by not asking the right questions, by not sharing the stories that mean the most to us or can be relatable, and then not cheating my work. Whether it's men's basketball, women's basketball, lacrosse, soccer, sideline, host, I dedicate the same time or energy that is needed to make sure I'm 100% prepared for my craft. So I'm not cheating the game either. And I feel like in this way on the broadcast side, it has become much stronger because when you start to cheat these things, you see that on air. People can tell through the stories that you tell. And then your relationships aren't as strong with the athletes that they need to be because they feel like you've cheated them. And so it was a lesson that thankfully I haven't had to learn on this side of the game, but I learned it as a player and made sure that I'm not cheating my work at this level where I'm working with athletes and media training them.
Yeah, Janae chimes in on LinkedIn and says it's a great life lesson. And it is. It's not a sports lesson, it's a life lesson. How many times have we heard you get out what you put in? It's real in sports, in your professional life, in school, in recovery, and whatever it might be in life, in relationships. Whatever you put into something, what you invest into something, you will see those dividends being paid. So it's absolutely applicable to so many different areas in life. And then Adriene, I'll tee that up to you, whether it's maybe lessons that you learned growing up and playing sports or being involved in sports, or maybe things that former athletes that you work with, maybe some lessons that they may have taken away they like to translate into their professional lives after sports.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I played volleyball, basketball, track and field, and flag football growing up. And each of those sports really required you to be able to adapt at any moment in time. So adaptability really helped shape and influence a lot of my career. I am a little bit of a serial job hopper in the past. I've worked at the NBA, LA Clippers, Adidas, Fox Sports, and most recently LinkedIn. But each of those roles did require me to learn how to shift and change on the drop of a dime. And even in 2025, with so much shift and change happening across all industries, adaptability is actually one of the most important skills. There's a study that McKinsey did that showed that 70% of employers are looking for adaptability as a core skill set for professionals in the workplace, and athletes are really good at just being able to like adjust to any situation at any given time, and being able to translate that even with athletes that I've worked with in my career, especially for those of them who are building their professional brands outside of their athletic career. The opportunity to be able to adapt to different situations has been a strong skill set that I've also seen them really showcase and shine through.
That is fascinating, because I think the ability to think on your feet, yes, you need to do it when you're on the court, on the field, when you're making quick decisions in the middle of a game as an athlete, but also you think about it in the conference room, in the boardroom, on TV, wherever your career might take you. Those are very admirable skills to be able to pivot, to think on your feet, to adapt to any changes in your environment. It absolutely is. It's a fascinating thing to see what we are able to overcome as humans and how we can become comfortable with change. Something I'm working on myself, becoming comfortable with change, but it's a great attribute to have. I do want to move forward. We have all learned great lessons, as we were growing up and playing sports. For me, it was a kid. Ice, it was you professionally. So I'll start with you with this question. When was the moment that you knew that it was time to make a pivot in your career? That being a basketball player was not in your long-term future, but there was a path elsewhere. And how did you kind of come to grasp with that? Because I can only imagine it's difficult to ultimately decide to hang it up and to pivot to something else. So how did you come to that decision, and how did you move forward?
Yeah, I love this question because I was grateful enough to make this decision while I was still playing college basketball. Like, I knew while I was playing college basketball at Syracuse, a top 10 team in the country, that eventually I was not going to be able to bounce the ball. Right. And I understood then that I wanted to stay around the game, that I love the game. And so that is when I discovered a passion for broadcasting. And so while I was in college, I felt like I had figured out how to start building this career a little bit, to where as soon as I was done playing, to finishing my basketball career on my terms, then I would be able to transition to something that I've already enjoyed, that I already have put some equity into, and that I really enjoy doing. And so I kind of feel like I not cheated the game, but I almost cheated the system in that way. And that I got to really experience like being a professional broadcaster while in college. Like, while in college, I did an audition with ESPN. While in college, I was able to, work with the ACC network as a soccer studio host, and then as a basketball analyst for men's basketball. And so I think having those experiences early made it all the more comfortable when I decided to retire from playing the game 4 or 5 years later professionally, to be like, okay, well, we're ready to transition into something new. And then I think taking care of your well-being means celebrating your wins, no matter how big or small. For me, that is something that I live by. Caroline, you know this because I've told you I celebrate in a multitude of ways. Sometimes, Kayla, it is going to get ice cream at the end of a long day when I'm like, I celebrated the fact that, hey, this media training session went well. Sometimes Adriene celebrating looks like going to Jamaica with a group of broadcast friends and really having a chance to sit down and relax off the air. But I really believe that in this industry, you're hustling so much. There's so many challenges, the next game, the next event, the next panel, that you got to take time in between to like take a breath and celebrate. One, that you maybe have gotten the work that you have. Two, that you maybe are living in an answered prayer that you've prayed before. And three, that you thoroughly still enjoy what you're doing. And that even between the issues or obstacles that we face, that yes, I'm going to celebrate this win today in whatever way I can. So for me, the pivot was a little bit easier because I started in college. And then the way in which I felt like I've kept this momentum is celebrating my wins.
Yeah, gratitude and reflection.
Mm.
Without it, you can drive yourself crazy. You can, lose sight of kind of the bottom line. I always say that, hey, I'm currently walking through doors that I once prayed would open, and you can't appreciate that if you don't take a second to just step back and reflect. And Adrienne, I know you work with athletes all the time. Maybe what are some things that you work with them and have them do, and just kind of some exercises that you use with them to exercise the gratitude of, look, you had a wonderful career as an athlete, but you also have such a bright future ahead of you. I know that can be a mental hurdle sometimes for some athletes stepping away from the game that's been their life for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of times, sometimes we really always want to jump ahead of like, okay, this is what I want to do. But with a lot of athletes, like they're very future focused, which is good because they have those goals in mind. But what I've discovered is that taking a step back and reflecting on what parts of your career as an athlete and things you've done outside of the game, what has brought you joy and excitement and actually comes natural and easy to you, and asking questions like, and not that we're going to do too much for free, but like, if I was not being paid to do X, Y, and Z, would I still want to do it? And understanding like, what are those sort of intrinsic motivations for you to help you be able to make that pivot is really important to take a moment to reflect on, because sometimes like, when that time comes for athletes of like, okay, like I'm ready to, or, I'm thinking about doing the next thing, it's jumping ahead to thinking through those things, but not taking that moment to actually truly reflect and understand, okay, how can we like, how can I think about my career in a different way? Or maybe I do want to stay in sports and work in the business of sports and entertainment, or the opposite. Maybe you're like, okay, I actually am completely done with the sports industry as an athlete, as a business, et cetera, and want to make a complete pivot into, medicine or whatever it is that they're interested in. So I always advise athletes to truly take a step back to reflect on what's most important. And what brings them the most joy before going out and thinking about those things. And then the other piece of it is, once you have that clarity of like, okay, this is what I want to do, this is how, or this is interesting to me. Now it's, how do you rebrand yourself and reposition yourself in a way that is easier for you to make it possible to jump into that new opportunity. So those are a few things that I typically have in mind when working with athletes who are in the process of making those career pivots.
And it seems so simple on the surface of finding out what brings you joy, what is so authentically you, what's a brand that you can build upon that's not fake, it's not something that you have to try and it just comes naturally to you. It seems so simple on the surface, but can feel like such a massive pivot whenever you're moving from one industry to another, or kind of going through the different hoops of life. But Kayla, I saw you giving Ice some props and talking about celebrating those wins. And I'm so interested to know, as an athlete, I think it can be so easy that, it's a win and a loss. You win a game, you lose a game. You have this many points. You have actual quantitative data to say, okay, this was good, or this was not so good. That wasn't my best day. In real life, we don't have a scoreboard. So after sports, how do you kind of differentiate and decipher what's a win and what is something that I can improve upon?
Gosh, Caroline, that's such a good question. I also think it's a big question, because I was agreeing with so much what Ice was saying as far as having the opportunity to have a clear path, make that pivot for yourself, and be able to kind of like try on the different possibilities that exist for you, and then have that path unfold. And then Adrienne as well, the moment of reflection, really getting able to get some clarity while you're where you want to be, But athletes, I think the biggest struggle from the transition, especially post-professional, post-collegiate, even post-high school, is transitioning this sense of worth from a human doing to a human being. And so much of their worth and our worth is tied up on the things that we do, that when the career is over, as far as playing, finding time to really identify, what does the being of me look like? What does success mean to me? How do I quantify that in a way that makes me feel seen, celebrated, heard, outside of what I used to know, outside of, a news article or an Instagram post or a big metric. And very similar to what Adriene was sharing as far as reflection goes, taking a moment to identify, okay, what does this moment bring me joy, and how am I going to celebrate in that way that makes me feel seen? So for me, when I go on a long run, kind of very similar to what I said, going on a long run, accomplishing anything from 10-mile workout to a 20-mile run, for me, it's breakfast burrito, iced coffee. I feel like I'm celebrating and taking care of myself. And I think always also those examples of care are the way that you can celebrate you doing something incredible or challenging. It doesn't always need to be something over the top or takes a lot of planning. I think self-care in itself is a sense of celebration that a lot of athletes tend to just roll over or even roll recovery into. So career pivots can be tough. And I think there are very few people who get to make the decision. I know me for myself, I tore my ACL my senior year of college, and I had to kind of re-identify, okay, volleyball's taken away from me. What does success look like for me? It's getting through my PT. It's learning how to walk again. It's learning how to jump again. It's returning to the court. And then I got back my super senior year. When I went on to coach at the University of Cincinnati, I ended up having to resign to take care of my mom who's battling cancer. And it's just like these constant shifts of life moving you in different ways that sometimes you don't get to decide. But when you enter that new arena and you really have essentially like a new playing field, like who am I today? How am I going to show up? What's a win? And sometimes a win is like, listen, the laundry in the corner that's been there for 2 days, we're going to put it away. And I'm so proud of that. So I can show up either for people I'm caring for or that run, or really go take on that class in the next moment.
I feel that with the picture that I have been meaning to hang for literally the last 2 months. I did it yesterday. It took 5 minutes. It was quick and it was easy, but I did it and it was a win.
A win's a win.
A win is a win. Why it was a mental hurdle for that long, I don't know, but I did it. And I think it's a great reminder too, that sometimes life throws things at us that reminds us we're so much bigger than our sport. We are so much bigger than our job. There's so much more out there, so much more purpose out there in the world. As much love and purpose that we can find in our professions and in our passions, there's so much more out there for us in the world. And I think that's where I'd love to go next. Adriene, I'll start with you. Community is so important and support is so important. And that comes easy when you're an athlete because you have that built-in community and you have that built-in team for support and a coach support system. So how have you found and maintained that sense of belonging and community in your life now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you bring up a good point on when you're an athlete, you have that built-in community. I think a big question that athletes after playing sports, have a challenge with is, where do I find community now that I'm no longer in my sport? And I will say, like, there's kind of actually this trending conversation going on right now on the internet around community and saying that the cost of community is inconvenience. And I think there is some truth to that. I think with the internet and technology and social media, so much is happening online. But what's really needed is more in-person interaction, and then also virtual conversations as well. I do lots of virtual coffee chats, but I've found that if you aren't finding the community that you're looking for, you may need to be the one to actually build it. And that's what I'm doing now with Arena. It's really a community for professionals who work across sports, media, and entertainment, including athletes who work within the industry as well, because we found that there isn't really a home for athletes who work in the industry and looking to connect with others who are also athletes in the space. So in many ways, you may need to be the one to actually build it in your city, in your community, and sharing that information with those in your network, even people you may not have interacted with in a very long time. Like they may be the ones who really need that support as well, and you could be the one to create it. But then also you may need to be the one that's also seeking it and exploring. There's a few communities that are also athlete specific. One I know is called The Post. I think they're New York based, but they may be having chapters in other places. And I'm sure Kayla and Ice might have a few others that they can plug as well. But that's how I think about it.
I want to stick on that for just a minute, Adrienne, because I think a lot of people resonate with that, myself included, being a remote worker and talking with people through a screen. It's fulfilling and I love it, but nothing can really replace that that in-person, real human connection. So what would be some avenues that you would recommend, whether it's athletes that are looking to take that next step or just, your everyday person, your everyday 9 to 5 worker that are maybe searching for that community?
Yeah, I would say for professionals who are, I would say like I played sports growing up, but I was by no means elite. So I did actually sign up for some like adult leagues, and that has actually brought me really close back to the game again, which has brought me like a ton of joy, and now I'm getting more fit, which is nice. But that's one route, and then also tapping into alumni or just reconnecting with friends, teammates, and seeing if they're open to just like playing sports again with you, or just grabbing coffee, doing virtual chats, turning that into in-person conversations, and you can really build upon it. It doesn't have to be like a whole day excursion situation. It could just be like, hey, I'm in town for the week, would love to catch up and grab coffee, and or just jump on the phone. So I think like you can make things low lift. It doesn't have to be a whole shebang.
Totally. And it could be a little intimidating sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can feel like a kindergartner on the playground asking if somebody wants to play. But, we're all human. We're all looking for more connection. It is, I'm sure, always welcomed from anyone in your community. And Kayla, I'll ask you the same question, going from, sports at an incredibly high level, then into coaching. And then now, in the role that you're in now as a Runna coach, how have you found and built that community and that Runna community as well?
Gosh, Caroline, you took the words kind of right out of my mouth as far as going to new spaces and being okay with failing or not knowing all the rules or not knowing anybody. I think we as athletes, as leaders, we very much want to get it right. We want to have, see it done, perform it well, be the top of the class. We're so goal oriented and want to achieve at a high level. That what's worked for me is returning to little Kayla, asking her what she likes to do. And by no means is long distance running something she liked to do as a child. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I was always outside. I was always playing. I was using my hands. I was going to pottery classes. It was just play. Like a return to play for me has been a really driving force as far as exploring these new communities and spaces. And then just using the resources that are here, specifically where I am in Chicago, looking into things, whether it's like social clubs, whether it's sport, whether it's different writing workshops, whether it's cooking, there's something that's always offered. I think you can find a lot of these things online. You can search on the internet, but knowing that when you go into these spaces, you may not know anyone, and that's okay. We all started off on a team, whether it's a sports team or a working team, where maybe we weren't familiar with who was there, but over time, we just kept showing up. I think the consistency in showing up makes the place feel more familiar. It makes you feel more familiar. It makes it more comfortable. And that connection becomes so important. I really think for me, being a Runna coach and running groups, which have boomed over the past several years, what makes them really special, in addition to any social group, is you have someone that's looking for you to attend. You have that not only accountability for to show up, but someone that's checking in on you. And I think as we get older and we work in these virtual spaces, we have less and less of that. So just being comfortable to put yourself out there.
Yeah, 100%. And being okay with failing. I think
Yes.
that's a great point, that when you're building a new community, sometimes, no sports pun intended, you're going to swing and miss. And you might stumble upon spaces that maybe aren't meant for you, or maybe you're tolerated more than you're celebrated. And that's okay. That happens. Just keep searching for that space where you are celebrated. And I'll round it out with you, where you found that sense of purpose, that sense of belonging since you stepped away from basketball.
Yeah, for sure. One community that I targeted once I stepped away from playing was the younger generation, like high schoolers. I feel like in high school, I experienced so many champions, mentors, coaches who poured into me from afar, from close, that had no other stake in my success other than wanting me to do well. And so I think in my adult life now, I take that same sentiments. building communities from my mentors, looking at my mentor like a LaChina Robinson who works on TV, and then being able to meet others through her, and then getting attached to her community in different ways. And then those that are younger are starting a new community in broadcasting, right? And a support group and being there. So one, I think latching onto my mentors are those that I really respect and wanting to meet people through them because I know they're good people. So then their people should be good people. And then that may also expand the communities that I'm in. And then I love the idea about, trying different sports leagues. Like I still hoop and play in local leagues all the time. Also, sometimes as an athlete, at least if you grew up playing an athlete with a ball, sometimes you need to do something without a ball. Like, just with space, just without having to push something, throw something. And so I picked up hot yoga recently. I also wanted that community because I care more about my wellness, right? Now that I'm a working woman and I'm building my own schedule, I worry about getting overwhelmed or overloaded. And so I also wanted a community that could serve me in multiple ways. I'm in hot yoga, sweating, and I'm tired and I'm exhausted, but I'm also like working on my breath, right? And I'm centering myself and I'm getting to set an intention for my day, my practice, etc. And so try and find communities too that maybe serve you in multiple ways, where it's not just filling the void of loneliness, but filling a void too of companionship, or filling a void of just fun, or filling a void of learning something new. I think the next community I'll do will be cooking. Like I'm very much interested. I just bought a house and moved in, and I feel like, if I'm not really using the kitchen, what am I doing? And so I want to find a community that can help me cook. And yeah, so I don't know. I think too, just thinking outside the box and being very childish about it. Like you want it, it's okay. You can go and get it. You can reach out to people. The worst thing that can happen is someone says no. The best thing that happens is you gain a community that supports and loves you. And those communities do exist, multiple of them. I believe that everyone should have in their lives.
There's no rules. Like there are no limitations on the spaces that you can enter into. And I think that you bring up a very good point of being intentional about where you spend your time, how you invest into yourself. If you are trying to get away from the computer more and also get some more steps in, a run club is a wonderful way to do that, of being intentional about some of these avenues that you decide to invest into outside of sports or outside of your professional life. All wonderful questions, and appreciate all of your insights so much. I know that we will get to some questions from the audience and people that have chimed in, but before we get into that, I'd love to dive into just a question from me, if I can be selfish and take over here for just a minute. I'll start with you first and foremost. That we as women have unique perspectives as athletes in a professional life. How have you used your womanhood to your advantage in continuing to build this platform that you've built for yourself?
You asked me that because I love to talk about this. Caroline is one of my dear friends in broadcasting. This is how she shows love to me, by allowing me to talk about being a woman in a male-dominated space, right? I had the privilege of going with CBS Sports Network to the men's Final Four this past year, and being one of only 2 women of color that were covering the event from a broadcast standpoint, like include the radio and the TV and the sideline and this and that, just us 2. And I didn't really realize how big, I guess, it was until you're there and you're kind of getting a look at the landscape. And so one thing that I will say about thinking about this is it's all about your framing, right? Like you could look at it and say, I'm 2 of 2 million, or you could look at it and say, we are the 2 of 2 million. And so I take great privilege in getting in some of these spaces in which I'm working with people who don't look like me, don't come from the same background, because one, that's what makes TV fantastic, is that we have multiple opinions from multiple perspectives and we can come together. But 2, in that every time that I'm on air, and hopefully I'm representing a brand in which young people that look like me, or young women that are playing sports, or young women that are growing up and knowing they can't play their sport forever, understands that there is another pathway, another opportunity that you have access to just based off of your sport and who you are and possibly who you can become. And so I just really hope that if you can see her, you can be her, is what is happening when I'm able to work in these spaces in which I may be the only woman in the room. And I celebrate being that, because I also tell you, Caroline, they need the diversity. It's not great when you have all of the same thing in one box, right? Like we don't want to order just all vanilla cookies. We want an assortment of cookies. We want an assortment of donuts. And so I add a much needed diversity in the donut box.
Representation matters. Seeing someone accomplish something makes you believe that you can do it too. Being a woman in sports, I can absolutely resonate with that. But Kayla and Adrienne, before we get to any other questions, would love to give you the opportunity to jump in here as well. Kayla, we can start with you.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, all of it. And yes, same. I mean, like the phrase that comes to me that I really stand by and share a lot is you can't be what you can't see. And whether for me, that was growing up playing volleyball and now being in running, which from a coaching level, and I even think the way running is marketed is super homogenous. It's predominantly white. It's it's a specific body type. It's a specific speed as well. So to be a coach within running as a 5'10", super broad athletic build, former volleyball player, my hope and what I feel, especially for women of color, Black women, for them to see someone that's taking up space, that's doing something. For me, running is positioned as physical health and well-being, yes, but also mental health and well-being. It's time that I am specifically carving out for me, that I can't sit and be on my phone all day. As you were saying, Caroline, I can't have my phone with me. And for me, that is an active practice of self-care and self-preservation. And so being in this space, not only encouraging more women to get out and also young girls get out and move their bodies. It doesn't always have to be running. It could be walking or jogging as well. But the body literacy that comes through movement is a huge part of mine. When we're looking at the body of research in sports science, that's how we train, we recover, we have nutrition. Only 3 to 6% of studies are done on women specifically. Like only women. So we don't really understand how women's bodies move. That's why the conversation of, how do women recover, all this research and all these pieces are coming out because we haven't been included in the research for so long. So my platform, I really look to encourage women to get moving, just to get that conversation going. How does your hormone cycle affect the way that you feel? And then you're able to show up, perform, yes, on the court and the field, but also in the boardroom. Those things are super important to understand. And then also getting a baseline. So I really feel that being a Black woman who's a distance runner and not only a sprinter, I think that's where a space a lot of Black women tend to show up, is really important to me. And it's an opportunity to broaden what running looks like, and then also start conversations within our bodies, understanding what we need to show up in the world.
Understanding that what our bodies can do are truly remarkable, and that moving our bodies is a privilege. It is not a punishment. It is not something that we have to do to be able to fit into a certain box. It is a privilege to be able to move our bodies. And Adrienne, I'd love to give you the floor as well.
Absolutely. So 1000% agree with everything that Ice and Kayla have shared so far. I was recently on a Latinos in business conference conversation where we were kind of talking about the same thing, where I think it really comes back to being a woman of color, being a woman in sports is really a superpower, because we are coming into the conversation with those unique perspectives that, especially now more than ever, with such an explosive growth of women's sports over the last 5 years, especially. We need more women in the room and part of those conversations, and really creating that change that we want to see in the industry. And it's the only people who are really qualified to have that level of insight are women in the industry. So that's really what comes to mind to me when thinking about how being a woman impacts everything that we do in business and our career and as athletes in the space.
Superpowers, superwomen, 100%. I would love to get a question from our listeners. One community question says, what is your most urgent dream for women in sports? Kayla, we can start with you.
Yeah, I would say my most urgent dream for women in sports is the support of women off court, off the playing field, outside of what they do, whether it's, how they don't want to develop professionally, whether it's childcare, healthcare, especially thinking about volleyball and the leagues that are forming here in the US. That's something that's really near and dear to my heart, having a couple of teammates who are participating in that. I think understanding the care that is required for a woman to do the job of performing, and that includes broadcasting, and women in sports across the board, also requires care around her as well.
Yeah, Adrienne?
Yes, I would add on to that with more women in sports in senior leadership roles. Like, I'm talking C-suite, above director, like there's kind of this threshold happening where you see women in sports, women of color in sports, up to a certain level across in the space. So in terms of like you're looking at an organization, you see diversity to a degree, but only to a certain level. So I would love to see more women of color and women in sports at that senior leader level.
Women in positions of making decisions. It's where women belong. It's where everyone belongs. Ice, I see you nodding along.
Yeah, mine is actually very simple. It's that women and men make the same dollar in the same job that they are working. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. It's something that I, obviously in my personal careers, right, try to negotiate for. But what it requires is that, one, we don't take less than when we know that we are worth more, and two, that we find male allies that are willing to share information with us, so we know when we are being lowballed or not or undervalued. If we don't have the information to have the comparison, then you will never know, other than maybe thinking that you're just being underpaid just because. And so I hope that my urgent dream for women in sports is that you get every cent that you feel like you are valued at, and to not undervalue yourself, or they will.
Or any cent even more than you feel that you are valued at. Never harm in asking.
Never too many cents.
There's never too many cents. The worst thing they can do is say no. So you may as well ask for it. And I'll add to just being, a woman that covers sports and a woman that covers women's sports. I am ready for women in sports to be covered the same way that we cover men in sports. Just looking at it through a microscope. I have lots of dreams for women just in general, but women in sports, I want stories about women in sports to be covered with intention and with compassion, not just as a way to check a box, to say, okay, we covered, our WNBA news for the day. We covered our NWSL news for the day. We did our duty. No, you should tell these stories because you are passionate about them. You should tell these stories because these stories matter, because these stories are impactful. Don't just show up to cover these stories. Dive into the deep end and really share about how remarkable these stories about women athletes are. I just want there to be more intention, the way that we talk about women in sports, just women in general, giving women the credit where credit very much so is due. We have another question. This one says, I'm pivoting brand new into sports from a decade in tech. She said she was a high school athlete, did not do collegiate sports. So advice for a woman of color doing a mid-career pivot in her late 30s. I know it's always an intimidating thing to do, to pivot, when you're in the middle of your career. But Adriene, I feel like you would have wonderful insight on maybe some advice for our friend Kelly.
Yes. Hey, Kelly. So I actually have 3 tips for you. And basically this approach is called the 3C approach. The first C stands for clarifying your career vision. So getting really crystal clear on exactly what you are interested in doing in sports. You mentioned that you come from a tech background. So are you looking to work at the intersection of tech and sports? Are you a product manager? Are you, like, I guess getting that clarity of where can you find that intersection of what you've done in the past and where it overlaps in the sports industry. The second C is curating your personal brand. So this goes for everywhere you're showing up professionally online, whether it's LinkedIn, maybe even your Instagram or other socials, as well as in your resume and cover letter. And everywhere you are showing up, you should be tailoring your brand to showcase that you are, really serious about sports. Maybe you've done some freelancing or consulting on the side, or even just volunteering in sports. Like, where is that, again, that intersection, and how are you communicating and showing up with that skill set? And then the third C is cultivating your community. So you mentioned that you have that tech background. Perhaps see if you have any peers in the space who work in sports who were previously in tech. Maybe tapping into that alum network of maybe where you went to school. But that third C is actually going to be probably the most important after those 2 foundational ones, because right now the job market's really competitive, more than literally ever before. So the way that you're going to get in is more likely than not going to be through those relationships. So start planting those seeds now.
Relationships, networking, oh, it goes such a long way. I cannot stress that enough. For anyone getting into an industry or making a career pivot, it's those relationships that are everything. But Adrienne, we'll stick with you because I would love to give you all an opportunity to give us some closing remarks, a closing call to action for you, Adrienne.
Yeah. So also on that note of cultivating relationships, please feel free to join Arena. We have a power match beta going on right now, which is think like a LinkedIn meets Bumble type of experience where you get matched to people based off of your career goals and interests. And we have our waitlist going right now. So if you work in sports, media, and entertainment or want to be, please feel free to join that waitlist, and there'll be more opportunities to get connected to others in the industry.
Love that. Love that. Love that. Kayla, I will give you the floor as well. Your call to action as we close up here.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a community, whether that's getting moving and running, we also have strength and Pilates on our platform. Runna is an incredible platform, RUNNA. If you use the code KJeter, you'll get 2 weeks free. Try out the platform. And if you ever need to connect or want to talk anything athlete mental health, any conversations, you can find me at Kayla Jeter _ on social media.
And Ice, how can the people find you?
Yes. If you are anything related to basketball, you're a hoops fan, you want to get more into it, men's or women's college basketball, I am your expert. Follow me on social at IceYoung23. I'm most active on Instagram. Do a lot of podcast work with Miss Caroline up there. So our hoops pod will be going through the women's college basketball season. And then I'll say personally for the business, right now we're in our media training tour. And so we're working with different teams across the country, preparing them for their seasons, even working with spring teams now that are getting ready for their seasons that are coming up. So feel free to follow our Instagram page, Your World ENT, if you're looking for media training. Last one, any broadcasters, if that word interests you in any way, shape, or form, I am open to talking and communicating about how maybe you want to get into the industry. I believe that right now is the time for women to get into the industry. We are trending. We are the big thing right now to hire. And so take advantage of that. Feel free to reach out to me and we'll chat about it. Thank you, guys.
Love it. Appreciate it. And just to recap here, you can find Adrienne's work at arenatalent.com. You can find Kayla at runna.com. That's RUNNA. And then you can find Ice at yourworldent.com. And of course, on CBS and Yahoo Sports Network. Guys, thank you so much for your time. Women are the trending thing because of the conversations that we are having right here. It all starts right here. So thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for everything that you do in your everyday lives to support this environment for women in sports. Appreciate you all, and find us back here, Makers LinkedIn Live. We hope to have these conversations several times throughout the year. So thank you so much to the Makers team, Angelica, Ron. Appreciate everyone who made all of this possible. We'll see you soon.